Assalamu alaikum. Hello everyone. Today we have another lesson on Mega Goal 6. But before we start the new lesson, let's take a quick overview of the previous one. In the previous lesson, we started with the topic of the unit, beauty is only skin deep. We said this expression means that beauty is only an artificial thing and it doesn't reflect the inner beauty and the personal traits. Then after that, we started with the first skill that we have talked about yesterday, which is pronunciation. We've said that pronunciation means the way we say a word, the correct way of saying a word, and pronunciation lessons help us understand what we hear and utter the words properly. In the previous pronunciation lesson, we learned how the auxiliary verbs are usually not stressed. We learned that auxiliary verbs are not stressed or are not usually stressed in sentences unless they are used for special emphasis. And we talked about the auxiliary verbs. We said that they are have, has, and had, do, does, and did, and also the modal verb in addition to the verb be. On the other hand, we said that the negative auxiliary verbs are stressed within sentences. Then we listened to some examples and you were asked to practice and repeat with the recording. Then we moved to the second part of the lesson, which is vocabulary building. In the vocabulary building, we listened to an essay about beauty. These 8 words were extracted from that essay. You were asked to listen carefully and try to guess the meaning of each one of these words so you can understand the meaning from within the context. We started with the first word, which means, the first word which is emerge, which means something that come to the existence from nowhere. Number 2, famine, which means or when people die out of starving or of shortage of food. Number 3, ideal is a perfect situation. Number 4, instinctive refers to something that happens according to the instinct, which is happening according to the feeling rather than the reason. Number 5, plump, a chubby or stocky person. Number 6, proportion, which means the suitability or the fitness of something with another. Number 7, standards are the measures of something. And the last word, vary, means the differences or the changes of something. And the answers for each one of these words are as shown here in this slide. Number 1 is D, 2, G, 3, A. Number 4 is B. Number 5 is H. Number 6 is C, number 7 is E, and the last one, 8, is F. Today on page 40, we have an essay that is changing concepts of beauty in history. Today we have the 8th skill in Unit 3, which is reading. We have here a before reading statement, which is describe the features that you notice when you first meet someone. This is absolutely, or the answer for this statement or for this question is going to vary from one person to another. Each one of us concentrate on things different than the other people. Some people focus on the appearance of other people's, their skin colors, the height, the weight of people. Other people focuses on how people speak. Other people focuses on how people are sharing their emotions, feelings, and how other people sharing their ideas. So each one has different concentration regarding the people they meet for the first time. So think about this statement and how do you describe the person, or what are the characteristics or the features that you focus on when you meet a person for the first time. Now we have here the title of this essay, which is Changing Concepts of Beauty in History. The word concept, what does it mean? Changing concepts of beauty in history. The word concept means the notion of something or the idea of something. So when we say changing concepts, means changing of ideas of people or the notions or understanding of people about beauty. So this is the meaning of the word concept, changing concepts of beauty in history. Now, before we start reading the essay, let's talk a little bit about how to read an essay or the strategies of reading an essay or an article or any reading piece you have. There are many ways. For example, we have the first type, which is the scanning. We scan if we read an article trying to find a specific information. If we are trying to find a specific information, that is scanning. We are just scrolling our eyes throughout this essay trying to find this piece of information. Once we find this information, we stop reading and we just use that information on whatever we want. This is called scanning or scan reading. Another strategy is called skimming. Another strategy is called skimming. What is skimming? Skimming is reading in a fast way, okay? Scrolling our eyes throughout the essay in order to understand what does this essay talk about. What is the main idea of this essay? This is called skimming. For example, you say, I skimmed through the book to know what is it about, okay? Then we have a comprehensive reading when you read something to get all the information it has and so on. Now we will start with the first part, but before we start in the first part, I want you to put some questions in your mind so you find the answers for these questions. The first one is, what is used to be considered as beautiful in the past, okay? And it is the other way around nowadays. The second thing is, how do men viewed beauty, or how do men showed their beauty in the past and nowadays? The last thing is, what are the things in common between the different cultures in the past? Even though they don't have the media that we have nowadays, so that we can share the information and everything faster than in the past. So think about the things in common between the different cultures in the past, like the Greeks, Egyptians, and the Romans, the Roman people. Now we will go ahead and listen to the first part of this essay. Then we will go back and try to talk about the most important words or the new words in this part.
Pages 40 and 41. 8. Reading.
Changing concepts of beauty in history. Most societies place great value on beauty, whether in art and architecture, fashion and appearance, or design and advertising. Throughout history, elegance and beauty have been the subjects of admiration and fascination. In modern times, we have competitions to find the most beautiful, magazines to tell us about trends in fashion and design, and a billion-dollar cosmetics industry built around looking and feeling beautiful. Yet, despite the importance placed on beauty, one question remains: what is beauty? The ancient Greeks thought that proportion was the key to beauty. The Greeks believed that they had discovered the mathematical formula that represented perfect beauty, which was based on proportions in nature. According to this formula, for example, the ideal face was 2/3 as wide as it was high. Modern research has proven that the basic concept of the Greek's formula, if not the formula itself, was correct. Beauty does seem to relate to proportion and balance. When related to beauty, these qualities are called symmetry. A perfectly symmetrical face, just like a symmetrical flower, would have a left side that is identical to its right side. Research has shown that the more symmetrical an object or a face is, the more beautiful it is believed to be. You might assume that this response to symmetry is something we learn. However, research has shown that the human appreciation for symmetry is instinctive. It has been found that babies will spend more time staring at pictures of symmetrical objects than they will at photos of asymmetrical objects. Not only is this response instinctive, but it does not appear to vary from one culture to another. In a study conducted at the University of Louisville, Kentucky, participants from 13 different countries were shown pictures of a number of different people. All the participants rated the attractiveness of the people in the same way. They all gave the highest ratings to the people with the most symmetrical faces.
In this part, we have many new words that needs explanation. We will start with the first one, which is architecture. The word architecture refers to the knowledge that is related to designing buildings and so on. So architecture refers to the knowledge or the field of designing buildings and so on. And the person who works at that field is called architect. The second word is admiration. The word admiration, which means the liking of something. When you admire something, that means you like it so much. Then we have competitions. We have competitions to find the most beautiful person. What is the meaning of competition? When two people are in a race and they are trying to get the first prize, this is called competition. They are racing to win the first prize, so this is called a competition. People have competitions there are competitions to find the most beautiful person. Also here we have the word cosmetics industry. What is the meaning of cosmetics? The word cosmetics refer to the tools that are used for the beauty, like we have studied in the previous lesson, like the nail polish, eyeliner, and so on. Another word here we have is symmetry. The word symmetry means two identical things. When we call something symmetrical, that means it is identical with something else. They both look alike. And if you notice here, in this line, we have the word symmetrical and we have asymmetrical. Sometimes we use the word a, like here, symmetrical and asymmetrical, to give the opposite meaning of the word. Symmetrical means identical things. Asymmetrical is the opposite, two different things. And this a is usually used to give the opposite meaning, like the word normal means an average thing or regular thing, and the word abnormal is the opposite. So sometimes we add a, sometimes we add a and b. So they are both correct and they both give the opposite meaning of the word. This way of adding a word before the sentence, adding a part before the word to give the opposite meaning is called a prefix. There are many ways of adding prefixes. There are many parts like the a, ab, un, in, im, and so on. Now let's go to the second part. So pick up your pen, listen carefully here, try to underline the new words, and we will get back once we finish listening to the recording.
While it is true that people across all cultures tend to admire symmetrical features, standards of beauty do vary from one culture to another and from one time period to another. For example, each of the following was considered beautiful at a certain time and place, but would not be considered so today. During the Elizabethan era in England, women thought that high foreheads were elegant, so they plucked inches of their front hair to achieve this look. Also during the Elizabethan era, women brushed egg whites over their faces in order to have a glazed look. In ancient China, the belief that it was elegant for women to have tiny feet led to foot binding. From the 14th to 19th centuries in Europe, women would bind their waists. The binding was sometimes so tight that often women could not breathe properly and sometimes fainted. Another example of how the concept of beauty and fashion changes with time is the way attitudes toward weight have changed through the ages. In Europe, between 1500 and 1900, a plump figure was considered very attractive. Famine was widespread, so plump figures represented health and wealth. During that period, it was common for people to pad themselves in order to look heavier.
Okay, some of the words here that we will shed the light on is, the first one is plump. It is one of the words that we have studied in the previous lesson, which means a chubby or stocky person. So plump means chubby or stocky. Another word is attitude. The way attitude toward weight have changed throughout the ages. The word attitude means behavior, the way people behave, the behavior of people toward these things, how they looked at these things in the past and how are they looking at these things nowadays. Now let's go to the last part of this essay.
In the 1900s, fears of food shortages started to diminish, and with it, so did the chubby figure. A new ideal began to emerge. Thin was in. Of course, this trend has continued to today. Because there is an overwhelming amount of fattening food available in most developed countries, it is now considered more attractive and healthy to be thin. Today, fashion and beauty products are usually associated with women. However, this too is the result of a change that took place over time. In fact, the male form was the original standard of beauty in Western culture. The muscular and fit male athlete was the ideal of elegance. For hundreds of years, makeup was associated with both women and men. Men in ancient Greece, Egypt, and Rome wore makeup on their faces and nails. Roman men even had some bizarre beauty practices of their own, such as the habit of bathing in crocodile water to improve their skin. Men's grooming and makeup went in and out of style a number of times through history, before becoming very unfashionable during the industrial age of the early 1800s. However, there are signs that masculine concern for appearance is making a return, as more men are joining gyms and opting to use skincare products than ever before. The standards for beauty and fashion have changed frequently throughout history and will no doubt continue to do so. However, one thing unlikely to ever change is people's fascination with beauty.
Okay, this is the last part of our lesson or of our essay today. We will start with the first word, which is diminish. In the 1900s, fears of food shortages started to diminish. The word diminish means minimize or decrease. So the fear of the shortage of food started to minimize or started to diminish. Another word we have here is the word masculine, which means anything related to men And anything related to woman is called feminine. We have the two words, masculine, anything related to men, and feminine, anything related to women. Now, let's go to the last part of our lesson today, which is after reading. Before we start reading this article together, we put some questions in our mind so we can look up the answers of each one of these questions while we read the essay. Now, after reading this essay, we have more questions to answer. We have now 5 questions. The first one, how did the ancient Greeks view beauty? What did they base their formula on? Okay, now we have an after reading question. Questions that is related to your understanding, to your comprehension of what you have just read. So to be able to find the answer for each one of these questions, you have to find the key words in the question. For example, in the first one, we have some keywords. The first one, which is ancient Greeks view and beauty. Ancient Greeks view beauty, and also we have the word formula. These are the keywords that could help you find the proper answer for this question. Okay, so you can go ahead now, go back to the essay, try to scan for these words, ancient Greeks and formula. Once you find this piece of information, reread this information and try to get the meaning or try to understand this sentence or this paragraph. Then after that, paraphrase what you have just read. Once you read the answer, okay, you have many steps. Read the question. This is the first part. Find the key words like ancient Greeks, formula. This is the second part. Then go back to the essay. Once you go back to the essay, try to find these keywords. After you find these words, read the sentence, make sure this is the answer that you want. After you make sure that this is the answer you want, paraphrase the sentence. Rewrite the sentence by using your own words. Don't use the exact words in the essay. Use your own words, because using the exact words in the essay is called plagiarism. And we have talked about plagiarism in one of the previous lessons, and we said it's something that we should always avoid. So how did the ancient Greek view beauty? What did they base their formula on? Now you can pause the video right now, find the keywords in each one of the questions, go back to the essay, find the answers, paraphrase them, then write them by using your own words. Then after that, you can resume the video so you find the correct answer here. Now, what is the answer of the first question? It is, the ancient Greeks thought that proportion was the key to beauty. They discovered a mathematical formula. The ideal face was 2/3 as wide as it was high. Number 2, what is symmetry? How does it relate to beauty? Symmetry is when one side of something matches the other side. Symmetrical faces are considered more beautiful. Number 3, what has research shown? Research has shown that people across all cultures tend to admire symmetrical features. Number 4, give an example of something considered beautiful at a certain time and place in history. In ancient China, women practiced foot binding to make their feet look small. And the last question and last part of our lesson today is, how have attitudes toward body weight changed over time? In times of famine, it was more desirable to be plump. When food became readily available, it was more desirable to be thin. This is the last part of our lesson today. Thank you all for attending, and I wish you enjoy the rest of the day. Assalamu alaikum.